Okay, pressure testing, part two. Okay, what is it? What do people call it that they're doing and confuse it? We're talking about sparring and habits, okay? So, the other thing about sparring is you do have to have a real bona fide sense of fear and dread. Now, in my own experience and upbringing, martial arts training was not pleasant and it was traumatic, as a matter of fact. But it puts you into a state where eventually you became comfortable with understanding that feeling when you were getting ready to fight. And it didn't cause you concern. You sort of you needed that to prepare yourself. Okay? Again, this brings up yet another issue about who will teach real pressure testing. The problem with pressure testing is that it's not popular. People don't like it. It's not pleasant. There's liability concerns. It's much easier for teachers to avoid it. But some of us won't do that because we don't care. The integrity of my teaching and my arts is the most important thing to me, aside from the love I have for life, my family, my friends. So there's no money, there's no popularity, and no ego drive for me to teach the way people think martial arts ought to be. But martial arts, alas, is a commercial enterprise, okay? And unfortunately, that's why there are so few really good martial artists. So here's another thing that I'll give you from bouncing. Everybody claims to be a martial artist when you're a bouncer. Everybody wants to spar you, and then you see these people get into actual confrontations, and they don't know anything. I can count the number of times I saw a martial arts technique properly done while I was bouncing, and saw a lot of action bouncing. And I'll tell you why that is. There are very few people who actually do what it takes to become an excellent martial artist, capable of using their art in a conflict resolution scenario that's dangerous. It's just that simple. Most martial arts are more or less teaching you to an adult version of dealing with a schoolyard bully, okay? And unfortunately, this gives people a false sense of what they're capable of, with disastrous results. So, one of the most important things that you can do if you really want to understand what pressure testing is about is get into a situation, put some gloves on with somebody, and just get a sense, first of all, of contact, okay? And then just hit each other a little bit. And, if you're young enough, if you're older, I'll jump directly to the second thing I'm going to tell you. Just get a sense of what it feels like to be hit, okay? Things that are unpleasant sensations, breathlessness, all these things that happen, okay? Now, what you can do for the second thing is you take a scenario, fighting scenario, and you use a specific one because it will help you a little bit in what I'm about to tell you. But let's say you're going to fight in a bar, okay? Now, you're going to mimic a bar fight, and you're going to do it so that every variable except speed is in the mix. So you watch a couple of bar fights, rehearse an understanding about what a bar fight looks like, how it feels, and then go through that slowly. Now, here's what you want to do. You want to get to a point where you can go through about 3 fighting scenarios, preferably with multiple opponents, learning how to outflank if there are people on your side, etc. And go through it so that everybody moves exactly the way somebody would in a real situation, but do it slowly, all at the same speed, okay? Just to get a sense of placement, okay? A sense of weight, what happens when somebody runs at you and punching you and you try to block that punch in a way that's not sufficient. There should be weight behind that so that when it hits your arm, you get knocked off balance. And then you begin to understand why doing something a certain way, okay, with balance and stability is a better alternative. If you work that way, then eventually, depending on how much you want to invest in this, you can up the speed. And eventually, you can sort of slowly work up to full speed, balls to the wall, boom. You want to have padding when you do that, and you want to accept that injury is inevitable, and you always want to try to have a good teacher guiding you. I'm going to talk about that because some things in the arts are dangerous. Okay? Pressure testing is one of them. Certain yoga things. In my art, we practice an esoteric form of yoga along with other arts, and it can shoot your kundalini up really fast, cause all kinds of psychic things that are very disturbing. You have to have a teacher that can work you through that when you practice those techniques, okay? They're not something you practice on your own. You go slowly. Most hatha yoga, physical yoga, is done slowly so that doesn't happen, okay? That's the same sort of directions I'm trying to give you to understand pressure testing properly, okay? And through that and having a good teacher, eventually you can slowly work up to a point where you can get a sense of what it feels like. Once you get that down, then you have to make some decisions that are more philosophical in nature. And I'll put it like this. What makes you willing to fight? That's the question. Ask yourself. Everybody's a little different, okay? Some people, you look at them funny, they want to kill you, okay? Other people, they have a very high tolerance. They're socialized not to be violent, whatever. Find that point. Start to work with it as a trigger. And that's your mental kind of platform with which to start approaching the adrenaline, the sense of fear, confusion, and trying to control your body in that situation. And you just have to have a good teacher somewhere, because you need a good teacher to guide you through at those points. But you have the basic stuff that you need at that point. I'm going to conclude with a story to give you a sense of how pressure testing really works as opposed to what people think. And it involves my introduction to karate when I was 13 years old. Back in those days, it took a long time to get ranked, and people were serious about fighting in the cities. I was in Baltimore. I had moved to Baltimore, and there was a karate school in the recreation center. So I went over there and met Sensei. And Sensei was this very kind of athletic-looking, tall, strong black man who was very polite and very kind. So I came in there and wanting to study, and he said, young man, you want to study karate? He said, that's excellent. Come with me. So the first thing he did was he says, show me what you have. I wasn't much of a fighter. I could take care of myself if he had to in New York, but he beat the living crap out of me. So I remember feeling really traumatized, like, what the hell did I do? And should I apologize? And as we left, he looks at me and he says, you did an excellent job. Please come back tomorrow. We're going to go 4 days. Can I please come back tomorrow? Good job. I don't know what the hell to think. But I didn't think I would go back, but I did. And the second day, same thing. I just got the snot beat out of me, I'm like, what the? Same thing. You did a very good job. Come back. Come back a third day, please. We have 2 more days this week. Just come back. So I said, I have to see where this is going to take me. I got to see where this goes. So I come back. Same thing. And it's the last day of the week, and I'm thinking, I'm pretty banged up and stuff, but I said, oh, hell. Go in there the 4th day. He showed me one technique before we started. One technique. He showed me a front kick. Now, when I went out there with that front kick, it may not seem like much, but it was a cracker to a starving man. It was my salvation. I mean, I did much better. I didn't do good, but I did much better. And it was violent, it was tough. I got smacked around, but I could kind of do a little stuff, you know? And he smiled at me and he told me to come back. And I was always a smart guy. And I had the epiphany as I left the rec center. I realized the gift I was just given. And I'm going to explain that to you. It has to do with pressure testing. You see, you can know a million techniques. You can have somebody who's flashy, somebody who's charismatic. But the real understanding of combat has to do with when you're in that situation he put me in, and then knowing the value when somebody gives you something of value to work with, okay? When he gave me that front kick, by the time he gave me that technique, he had framed a situation. He had framed a whole platform for me, a whole understanding about what it would be like learning an art to fight, not to play with, not to do fancy things with. And it would make it so that every time we learned something to be effective with, it was a gift, and we would use it, and we would maximize the value of that. And now most people won't put up with that, so you can understand why that's not done, especially nowadays. But if you understand my story, you'll understand what pressure testing is. It's not rolling around with your friend, just kind of boxing and smacking each other. Those are good things. I mean, they get you kind of in the understanding of, contact, boom, I can get hit. It's not the end of the world, but it's not the same. And I've trained very elite personnel, and I don't deviate much from what Sensei did, because you have to get people to understand almost immediately what the expectations are, what the situation will be like that you're in. And then when you become comfortable with it, you've conquered a lot of demons in the training to start with. Capiche? All right. I hope this was of value to you.